Hi, how are you? This is A.R.T Domine, trying to make families stronger, happier, and holier. And today we have a great guest. Well, first I want to introduce myself, Carly Beth Granados, and my husband.
José Luis Granados.
So we're together in this as natural family planning is something for both. And we're celebrating today, actually it's today, Stephanie could get me if I'm wrong, but today is the 50th year anniversary of the Apostolic Letter of Humanae Vitae that Paul VI wrote. And so that's why the awareness of natural family planning was this whole week that started last Sunday till today or tomorrow that ends because of Humanae Vitae Apostolic Letter. If you haven't read that, I really suggest to read as a couple. And in the future, you can stay tuned as we will have in A.R.T Domine a special workshop of A.R.T Domine giving Humanae Vitae and studying it together. So, and right now we have Stephanie Caven. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you.
We have an honor to have her with us as she is an expert and loves natural family planning. And she's certified Fertility Care Practitioner. She began using the correct model herself during her engagement in 2011. So she doesn't only knows about it, but she also practiced it before marriage and she practices it now. So she can tell you also her experience with that. It was during this time through the natural family planning, her own reproductive health was evaluated and dramatically improved. So she herself and his husband saw the improvement of it as health-wise. Then Stephanie obtained her BSN for the University of New Mexico in 2012. Has been introducing clients in the correct model fertility care system since June 2017. She has spent 8 years working in adults ICU as an RN. She completed the Natural Choice Fertility Care Education Program in August 2018. And currently she's working with a woman at the Whole Life Authentic Care Clinic, teaching them the correct model. And she's married, has 2 beautiful young kids. I would say baby color kids that she has her hands full. Doing this and helping people, families with the natural family planning and working from home with her 2 children and the husband. So Stephanie, welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here. This is a great topic and I'm happy to talk about it.
Great. So many people might be watching or later on see this. And the first question would be, what is natural family planning? If you can tell us what it is, I think people can.
Yeah, natural family planning is really just learning how to chart a woman's cycle and then using that information to plan family size. You can use that information to diagnose health problems. I even teach teenagers how to chart sometimes when they're learning how to figure out what's going on with their health and wanting to improve that. So natural family planning is a real invitation to like a whole new lifestyle that definitely allows you to plan your family size without contraceptives, without barriers, and be very, very successful at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
then you say that you were here, as you said, you knew about it before you got married. And you said it was a change in your health. And if you can tell us a little bit of your testimony of how that came about, that'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And in college, my doctors told me that all I could do was start birth control because that was going to be how I could fix my cycles. And I didn't like the way it made me feel. And so I stopped taking it. And I thought, this is just how I have to live my life. I don't have normal cycles. I don't have normal patterns and I don't feel good, but I don't like the pills. But then I found the Creighton model. I found NFP and I learned how to chart my cycles, and I found doctors who could read my chart and then give me really effective and holistic ways to improve my health. So by the time we got married, I was cycling like a normal, healthy woman. When we decided to start our family, we were able to do that successfully. I know for sure I would not have my two boys without this. It is definitely life-changing.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And now that you say that, it reminded me when I was young too. I didn't know anything about natural family planning or anything this method, honestly. And I think I was maybe 16, and my periods were irregular and sometimes hurting. So my mom, like a regular mom, took me to the doctor, and the doctor gave me pills. And my mom didn't know anything about it. So we said, okay, it was contraceptive pills, which I didn't question. I was like, well, if that's going to help me, then I'll take them. And yes, I did take them. But like you said, it made me feel very weird, not natural, just health-wise. I said, I don't want to take them. So my mom said, well, if you don't like them, don't take them. If you don't mind being irregular, then I guess that's fine. So I was 16, so I thought, well, it doesn't matter if regular, whatever, like, well, I guess that's life. I don't know. So I just didn't take them. And now I see God's providence of how God was protecting me in a natural way for me to take them, because later on I learned about it now that I'm married, and I thank God for that. So it's true what you're saying. So thank you so much.
So, just, I mean, like husband, how did the natural family planning help you and your husband in your marriage?
Oh, that's a great question. I think any natural method for family planning really demands a high level of communication from both sides, from husband and wife. And when you have those foundational blocks for communication in your marriage, talking about in-laws and money, it's small potatoes. If you know how to talk about family planning and talk about your biomarkers and what days you would choose for intimacy, those things become, other conversations become easier. I think also, though, it really invites you to get creative in how to show love to your spouse. Maybe it's not intimate. Maybe it's something outside of, the house. Maybe we go for a walk. Maybe we do something, play a game, or we read books together or something like that. That really we build our whole relationships into stronger foundations, I think, for sure.
That's true. Yes, it's very important. And I think you said communication, and one of the things as a married couple, I think it's important. The communication is one thing that we all have to work on, right? I think it's one of the things that we always talk about. How do you communicate? And yes, this can be something that can help them to communicate better, because it's more intimacy in talking about this. So I definitely think it's true. Well, I think you already mentioned it, but if people can think about it right now, it sounds good, or it helped you or helped me. But there's also some pros and some cons in this. So if you can tell us with your experience, or also with studying this and knowing more, what are the cons and pros of it, so people can know about it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a lot of pros already. You get to understand your health. You get to, build these great relationships with your spouses. I think that's a wonderful pro. But I think if anybody tells you that natural family planning is just easy and rosy all the time, they would be lying. It is definitely a challenge. And so like I said, I think you can meet the challenge and be overwhelmed by it, or you can meet the challenge and say, okay, we're going to try to grow from this. Because you do have to plan when intimacy happens and when it doesn't, based on your goals, if you're growing your family or if you're not growing your family. So those conversations have to be ongoing, and you have to, I think, really, just be open. And sometimes communication is not easy when we're talking about things like that. So I have had some couples say like, oh, natural family planning might take the spontaneity out of my relationship. I might lose the romance and and all of that. But I don't think it does. I disagree. I think that you just learn it's a lifestyle that's different, and some people don't understand it. But I think when you live it, it really does have allow for great growth in the relationship.
Yeah, now that you said that, like you said, you have to be creative, because I don't think it takes that away, that spontaneity. Yes, because talking about it doesn't take that spontaneity away. It just is a stronger bond that makes it sometimes more spontaneous, or
A different approach.
Yeah, a different approach. Like you said, it's a different
I
approach.
think so too.
And I think anything that is beautiful or good or God's will is always going to be challenging. So the challenge means it's good. So I think it's,
right. There's a great book that my husband and I have read together over and over. It's in our nightstand. It's all like dog-eared and note taken. It's called Holy Sex by Greg Popcak. And he really ties this idea about becoming an infallible lover to your spouse. So having all of these different layers of your relationship that are spiritual, that are intellectual and creative and emotional. And when we meet all these other needs for our spouse, our physical relationship can translate into a really rewarding and fulfilling physical relationship, even if it's not really our focus all the time.
right.
That's a great one for people to reference if you have struggles with that. So yeah, I like that one a lot.
Thank you. Yes, and like I said, it's just to know that intimacy as well is God's plan, and to see it as the beauty and dignity that God has given it to us. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Could you repeat the name of the book again and the author?
Yeah, the author is Greg Popcak, Dr. Greg Popcak. He's a Catholic counselor, and the book is called Holy Sex. And you can get it on Amazon. It comes in a Kindle version, or I like paper, so if you like paper too, it's not very expensive. It's probably like around $10 or so.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And now talking about that, how husbands, we can be aboard, on board with this, or it's just for the wives?
No, husbands have to be involved.
It's as I have to chart, and so how do you?
Yeah. So, I work with a lot of different couples, and I'm so surprised they are also creative in how they work together as a team on this. This really is a team effort, and getting your husband involved really just means inviting him to have a role. For us, that means that my husband keeps my chart for me. I make all the observations, and then I tell him what to write down, and he writes it down. And that's his way of contributing. It's his way of saying, I understand what's going on, and I'm on the same page on our fertility goals as you are. But I have other couples that get really creative that, I have one friend who leaves her chart kind of taped to the bathroom wall. And so they can always access it whenever they need that. I have another couple who together at night, they write it down at the same time. And other couples that travel a lot and maybe aren't together, they use apps to sort of keep them connected on that. So definitely, I think it's an empowering thing for a man to be able to read a woman's, his wife's chart and say, I understand, and I want to meet these goals at on the same level that you do.
Right. I love what you were saying about your husband doing the chart. I never thought of that. I love it. I think I'm going to take that away and do it like that, because I do the one in the back of the bathroom, but I keep doing it. And he sees it too. Yeah. But I like the idea, to take that. Oh, okay, what's happening, to understand it. I like that more. And one thing for my husband that I liked a lot is many times I start to be moody, or some things are going on, and he's the one that tells me, oh, well, here, this was happening, so please do this and this and this, or take this, or rest, or go take the kids out, whatever, because he knows what's happening. Instead of being mad at me or upset at me or whatever it is, he tries to understand what's happening in my body, and that makes a connection of knowing, okay, he really loves me and he understands, instead of me. Yeah. So that helps a lot.
That is so true. Drew still does stuff like this, but when we were newlyweds, he would send little flowers to work and things like that. And he always did it right in my luteal phase, when my hormones started shifting and I started feeling kind of crummy. And he would say, my friends at work would say, gosh, your husband, he just gets you. You're having a bad day and you haven't even talked to him. And I said, yeah, he does, but he has inside information. So, your guys can do this too. They just need to step it up and learn a little more about your body. So yeah, definitely, that definitely happens.
And now that you said that, as a couple, you were also talking in the beginning, it helped you before marriage, and also, you said you have teenagers, you help as well. So this is not only for married couple, also for young people, and even for women who in their 40s, I'm in my late 40s. So starting the menopause also helps to know all their hormones change that are happening can also help charting, not to stop charting because you stop having babies or because, I don't know, any situation. So can you please tell us a bit more about how do you help a young woman before marriage or even before, like, I guess, teenager years? How can they be helped with that, or why do they have to know it?
Yeah. I think one of the most important reasons that I think young girls should be empowered to understand what their bodies are capable of is because it really helps them understand God's design for why why women are created the way we are. I think that and there have been a lot of studies actually done on this topic, when girls understand what their bodies are capable of, and they understand how to chart what's going on in their cycles and appreciate that, they actually have much lower rates of like premarital relations with their boyfriends. Many of them choose abstinence till marriage, which I think is just chastity is just a profound respect for our sexuality. And outside of a marriage, that looks one way, and inside of a marriage, that looks a different way. So these girls really get to appreciate what their bodies were really created for. And then there are most of the teens I work with are charting for health reasons. So maybe they have really painful periods, or they have PMS that really interrupts their lives. Maybe they have irregular cycles and they never know when their periods are going to come. Learning how to chart can really empower them to understand what their bodies are doing and work cooperatively with a doctor who can appreciate that. Because birth control has a lot of side effects, and it's really just a band-aid on top of a problem that we haven't fixed yet. So if we can work with a doctor who appreciates our natural rhythms and appreciates the way that God designed each one of us individually, then we can achieve this overall picture of health that really is like the goal, I think.
So so if someone has problems like health-wise, then really natural family planning can help them working with a doctor to solve the problem without pills.
Yes. Oh yeah. Without the birth control pill, absolutely. And we actually are really blessed to have doctors in this area that can do that and are very, very skilled. We have the doctors at the Whole Life Authentic Care Clinic where I work, all specialize in this. And there are a few in Dallas that do work with natural family planning. So I think that, these doctors are committed. They do not prescribe birth control at all. In fact, they're real pro-life doctors who really believe in the way that God designed us and how we should be working towards an overall picture of health.
And that's great. That's great to know that you mentioned where you work, because there's a lot of doctors who can help, and they really want to help the woman with the natural family planning. So thank you so much. And here in Dallas as well, my doctor, because I'm closer to Dallas, is Dr. Behan as well, if someone's looking as well. But I believe your clinic has many and can help women to go forward there at the Whole Life Authentic Care Clinic. So thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering at what time, it is really, at what age, yes, at what age it is helpful to start a young woman, what is the right age to start?
I think it makes the most sense. Some girls start their cycles really young. And so if they're having trouble, so if they're having trouble health-wise with things when they're very young, I think they should start charting if there's a health concern. But in general, I think high school girls, I think we should be charting. Around the age of 14 is when a lot of the big studies have been done for like teaching fertility appreciation to young girls. And they have really positive outcomes because the girls are, mature enough to appreciate the material and kind of entering that time of life where they want that independence to kind of, make their decisions about, about how to be themselves. So I think that it's really an empowering thing to go along with that age group.
And I'm glad you said that, because honestly, to be honest with you, I have three daughters. They're still young. One is 5, 7, and 9, so they're very young. But I never thought of teaching them natural family planning until I thought, like myself, just married. So I love what you're teaching now or letting us know, so many who are listening can really start in a young age, so they know their bodies and being, like you said, empower them, and they're more secure of who they are by knowing their bodies, because God made us with that dignity, and He knows, instead of trying to go with what the world is saying. So that's very important. That's very true. And that will help them in their marriage, like you said already, instead of learning. And of course, if you're already married and never done it, or if you use pills, you can always go to natural family planning, right? I mean, a question is maybe if I already use the pills, can I go and do natural family planning, or will that be, you can't do that? Or how does that work if someone is listening and wants to go and do natural family planning after?
That's a really great question. I have a lot of clients who are transitioning from a form of contraception because they don't like the side effects or because they want a different lifestyle. Some of my clients aren't Catholic and they've learned about natural family planning and they say, wow, there's a lot of beauty in this. I want to jump on this train. And yes, you can definitely chart if you're coming off of birth control. These situations sometimes your cycles take a little time to stabilize after you come off of birth control, especially if you've been on it for a long, long time. And so I really recommend learning and walking that path with like a trained practitioner like myself, or whatever model that you choose, so that it's not a frustrating time, and so that you can still achieve like accurate charting and be confident really quickly.
And now you said something important. You said models. So there's different kinds of models in natural family planning. I don't know if you can tell us. I mean, of course, it's many, or go deeper. Maybe you just mention what they are. Mm-hmm. And as well, you mentioned it is good to have someone like yourself to find someone. So I'm assuming that even if you're starting or you're married, it's always good to have someone to help you instead of making it by yourself.
Yes. So I teach the Creighton model, which is one of the natural family planning models. And it's a sister model, I guess, to the Billings model. These are both mucus-based models. And then there's a model called Marquette that uses a urinary monitor. So you monitor hormones as you go through your menstrual cycle. And then there are a variety of symptothermal methods that use temperature drop and other mucus signs and cervical changes to kind of track the cycle. So, the NFP model that works for the woman, the one that she wants to use, is the one that's going to work for her. I'm a little biased. I've been charting the Creighton model for almost 10 years, and I love it. I have no complaints. But that doesn't mean it's the perfect model for everyone. I would say though, if you have a health concern, a lot of the doctors that build treatment plans, they build them on the foundation of Creighton model charting, because it's really specific when it comes to those kinds of things. So that would be one thing that I would consider.
Thank you.
And this is, I think there's something we should be clear. This is not only not to get pregnant, right? I mean, it's go much, much farther.
You're right. Yeah, this is not just for avoiding pregnancy. That is such a great question. I think that this is something that people should be charting with all the time. A lot of my clients are actually clients who struggle with infertility, who are trying to find solutions for that. And when we understand what the body's doing, it's a roadmap to choosing the right diagnostics and to choosing the right treatment plan for your doctors. So it really, really is important. If you're trying to achieve a pregnancy and you have trouble, then you already have the health record there. But if you just want to have, if you're just wanting to achieve pregnancy and you have regular fertility, you can time conception very reliably with models like this. In the Creighton model, if you have normal fertility, 76% of couples are pregnant in the very first cycle that they try, because they know which days to use. And so if you are timing pregnancy and you want to make sure you have a baby in the fall or have a baby in the spring, whatever your choice is, you can actually be really predictable in those kinds of things.
Oh, wow. So now when you're saying that, so then this natural family planning is the rate of it that it works, it's high. It's not something that you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's 50%, or I'm scared that if I said I want babies, it will come. I mean, it actually does work.
Yeah, I think that when most people think of natural family planning, people think of the calendar rhythm method from decades ago. It's so outdated. And it had an enormous failure rate of 30% for people who are avoiding pregnancy. So that's, I think, why people get a little nervous when we talk about natural family planning. Not the modern models of natural family planning, like the Creighton model, like Billings and Marquette and Symptothermal, they boast 90% and higher efficacy rates. The Creighton model, the user efficacy rate for a Creighton model is 96.8%, which is just on par with any other artificial birth control.
Right. So yes, it does. And how long does it take when, because you're saying this, how long does it take for the woman or the couple to know their cycle or know that it's going to be, it's going to work? How does it take?
That's a great question. Most women are pretty confident after charting about 2 to 3 cycles. Their confidence levels really get, I think, boosted when they can see their ovulation happening and they just nail it on their own. And then the next period follows and they're like, yes, I got this. So 2 to 3 cycles, I think, and people are feeling really good about them.
Okay. And also one thing I was thinking right now that you were on board with it, like you were okay with it, and maybe your husband was too, Stephanie, but I don't know if you have couples that maybe the husband is resistant or it's only she that wants it. How can you advise those women who they want it, but the husband might be a reluctant or not sure about this?
So I have encountered that before. I really encourage husbands to attend the follow-up sessions with the wife. I think that, when you learn with somebody who's trained, who knows the science and can help you kind of navigate what you're charting, it allows for somebody to kind of be a third party in the conversation and say, no, here are the facts, here are the things that we know about the cycle, and this is why it works. And so I think that helps to kind of, because people get nervous. I think when we're growing up, I think the secular world tells us you can get pregnant any day. And so that's scary to think about. It's not true. So having husbands come to follow-ups, I think, is a very good first step. And then maybe second steps would be working on those communication tools. Sometimes couples find that, maybe we need a little bit of counseling to help us work through some of these things. Maybe we're not as good at communicating as we thought. And so in those cases, I would refer, because I'm not a counselor, I just teach.
Yes, of course. But that's a good point, because maybe there's something else in their relationship, what's going on or could happen in the future. And so instead of this can help them have a better bond, a stronger bond in the relationship, and that goes, and then that carries on to their family and their kids. That's a very good point. I never thought of that. And then, one thing here also, you were mentioning about learning with someone. What happens if someone doesn't have the money? Does it cost a lot of money to have someone like you, or to go to the clinic that you work at, the whole life clinic, or how do they do it? Maybe people are wondering about that. Yeah,
there are really good resources in the community. I know that a lot of us practitioners really feel like there's a calling to do this. I really feel that way. I always tell people to be honest with me about cost. If they have concerns about cost, then they should just talk to me about it. And we always work on something that can work for their families. So I just encourage you to, reach out and, ask don't be afraid to ask the question. I don't think that people should not chart because it's too expensive. That people should have access to this. And I think that a lot of practitioners in the area feel the same way. So I try to make that as little of a barrier as possible.
Okay. And people who are listening who are not in Fort Worth, because in Fort Worth, you have the Whole Life Authentic Care Clinic that is wonderful. And in Dallas, there's not a clinic that, but there's Dr. Behan that I know. But if they're out of Dallas, Fort Worth area, how can they find a doctor or someone like you to help them? Is there anything that you suggest?
That's a great question. Yeah, so actually on the Whole Life Authentic Care website, under, I think the tab is called Creighton model, there's a list of practitioners for the Texas area. And most of these practitioners are teaching online, and they were teaching online even before the COVID-19 pandemic started. They're available. And I think that is really convenient, especially for a lot of moms who don't need to find a babysitter or can't find a babysitter for their kiddos, and they can do it during nap time. I do that a lot with my clients. So I think, that would be a great place to start if you're interested in the Creighton model specifically. And if you want to look into other models, the Fort Worth Diocesan website does have a list of instructors, and I think they're all teaching online, or there are some options for online as well.
Does it take long, these courses?
The courses. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, courses is to take long. It's because we took a course when we got married. I don't know how long at that time. I think it was like a month courses, like going in weekly.
Right.
So there's, like you were saying, there's two ways, I guess. Like you take the course and you bring your husband and they teach you how to work the natural family planning. And then after that, then they can go with someone like you who can help them actually chart and know better. But I guess the classes, is that too long? Is like right now, how are they doing it? Is it a month, or how do they find the classes? Or do they need it, or just someone like you certified is enough?
So every model is different in the way that it's instructed. So I know, like, generally some models do group instruction. So your classes are in a group setting. And some model, like the Creighton model, is all one-on-one. So you maybe have an intro session that's a group session for Creighton model. And then everything after that, because every woman's cycle is so individually different, it makes the most sense to do them individually after that. Creighton specifically is designed to support you through the whole first year of charting. And so we see you very frequently, like every 2 weeks for the first 8 weeks at the beginning. And then after that, we start spacing it out based on what you need.
Oh, that's perfect. That's great to know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another question. That will this affect in somehow the relationship between wife and husband?
I think it does. I think it really, I think that we have to really understand, like, what makes the other person tick if we're going to work on natural family planning. I think love languages, I talk about love languages with my couples a lot, because I think it's a really great place to start. What is your love language? What's my husband's love language? And then, am I speaking that love language to him, or am I even hearing him say it to me? Like, for example, my husband, his love language is physical touch. And mine is acts of service. So we're like opposite when it comes to love language. But I know, since I know that about Drew, I know, like, a hug really makes him feel special. Holding his hand when we're out in public makes him feel really special. A kiss when he walks in the door. These are things that are not my natural instincts, but I go out of my way to do them because I know that they make him feel extra loved. And then he does the same thing for me, doing the dishes without being asked, cutting the grass without being asked, like those kinds of things, making me feel like super, super special. Those are things that really speak to me. So knowing that and understanding that about our spouses, I think, and knowing that they change throughout marriage too, I think is a really good way that it can kind of change relationships and say, like, yeah, I can speak your language and you can speak mine.
And now that you say it, because like you say, it does changes, from the beginning, having babies, toddlers, and then, in your marriage, charting doesn't stop. You should continue charting, in your marriage, because even that changes. The communication can change, but charting together will help you communicate and see the changes instead of, not knowing what's happening to your spouse, both ways. So I think that does help, charting all the way to your marriage, so that together, because that will help, like we were saying, to know each other, what's happening inside of you. So that way we can actually help each other outside with a love language, for example, that you're saying. Because if you know what's happening to your husband, then you can react. But if you don't know what's happening and you're both busy and not be able to communicate, except all those exterior things that you have to communicate, then you're not going deep. And that can be, it can affect the marriage. It actually does help the marriage a lot by going deeper.
I think it does, for sure. I think it does.
That's very true. You have to communicate, like you have to. So if you want to, you have to communicate. So that's something that's good, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Something that you said about your experience, you said that it wasn't for natural family planning, you would not have the two boys. Can you tell us a bit more about that. Why is that?
Yeah. Polycystic ovarian syndrome means that you do not ovulate on a regular, like in a regular fashion. Either you don't ovulate at all or your ovulations are low quality. And I'm one of those women who didn't really ovulate maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. It was not a regular thing for me. And if I had followed the treatment plan that my regular OB-GYN had suggested, which was put a Band-Aid on it, take the pill, we'll get rid of this irregular cycle, we'll get rid of this irregular bleeding. I would not have known that my problem was PCOS. I would have come off of the birth control pill, and my doctor would have told me, because I don't know if you know this, regular OB-GYNs say, okay, a year of random acts of intercourse before we decide that you have an infertility issue is the recommendation. Okay. So it would have been a whole nother year of not ovulating and not having not having healthy cycles before they started investigating things.
Oh, wow.
So this is, I think that, understanding my health and understanding how to manage a syndrome like PCOS with like outside of a marriage, I have a lot of clients that are doing this. They're college age, they're not engaged, they want to be healthier, and they're excited, they're empowered because they know that when they do decide to get married, that they are healthy, and that if they want to start their families right away, they can. They don't have to jump through these other unnecessary steps. So yes, I was able to have my boys when I was young. I was 25 when Michael was born, and I was 27 when Joseph was born. And so, these are things that I don't think I would have. I think I could have very well been on a path of like struggling with infertility for years and years before I found.
Wow, that's a great testimony. Thank you. I didn't even know that what you were saying didn't exist. I didn't know that about that. So that's great to know, because it's true. It's the more you know your body, the more you can see what's wrong with it and health, because God made us, and so He knows. And in a healthy wise, we can see the problem and conquer it in the way that God's planning. In God's plan. And sometimes we want to be God. It's like, okay, we can take control of everything, and so we want to know when, instead of letting God take control by doing the natural way. And thank God He gave us this method to do it. He knows, and He made us, and He can say, you know what, you can do natural family planning and plan your kids as well and be responsible. Because some people might be able to say, oh, well, natural family planning, maybe you have a lot of kids and you're not being responsible because you don't have the money or whatever. That can be another issue of saying you're not responsible enough. But actually, I don't think so, because you are being responsible by taking care of your body the way that God made you. And then you were responding the way that God, and by you letting God choose freely, to get pregnant, not to get pregnant, by you being responsible as He made us. So I don't, and then if you're, for example, you're doing it and you do get pregnant, well, God wanted you to get pregnant, even if you were not expecting it, let's put it that way, if it happens, because it could happen, but rejoice because you were doing the best thing and you were responsible, but God had another plan. So that's where you're open to life in that area.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what Pope Paul VI talked about in his Humanae Vitae encyclical. At the end of at the very end, I don't know if you remember, he kind of summarizes what his sort of prophetic predictions were for the world with the introduction of birth control. And he says he invites physicians to find better ways to family plan, because Catholics did need and still do need a responsible way to family plan and to follow God's design. And I think, and that is actually what spurred a lot of these new modern methods to even exist these days, was the Humanae Vitae encyclical. So yeah, it is a real call to action at the end there. I think it's really a powerful one.
It's true. It's amazing. And again, if you ever read the encyclical Humanae Vitae, please read it. And in A.R.T Domine, we'll be doing Humanae Vitae soon, and a workshop so people can know more about it. And because when you read it, it's amazing how you fall in love with God more, with your marriage, with what God intended in our marriage from the beginning. So it's a beautiful way. And just if anyone who's watching has any questions, you can always write the questions, and then if they were not answered in this way, we can answer them later on as well. For anything that concerning natural family planning, or the clinic where you work in the whole, to find a clinic, a whole life authentic care as well. I don't know, do you have any other questions, sweetie, or anything that?
Maybe if you could tell us a little more about the clinic. I mean, how
How does it work, or how do they?
right? I mean, how does it work? How to get in contact? A little more like a.
Oh, yeah. So the clinic's located in Fort Worth, and we have 3 physicians, 2 OB-GYNs, and 1 family practice doctor. One of our OB-GYNs is a naprotechnology fellow, like surgical fellow. So she is trained specifically in naprotechnology surgical practices that can help address things like endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, things that need surgical intervention potentially. Our other OB-GYN is a medical consultant, so she handles, all the hormone imbalances and all of the little things that go along with that. She does everything that's not surgery. Like they can both do both of those things. And then we also have another doctor, Dr. Kurz. She's our family practice, and she's a medical consultant. She can handle these cycle problems that we've sort of been talking about today, but also she does the whole spectrum. You can see the doctors in the clinic for your OB-GYN appointments. You can have your baby and then bring their baby over to Dr. Kurz for her pediatrician appointments. It's really designed for the whole family to go and get care in one place with good Catholic doctors who understand the lifestyle that we're living and the goals that we have. So it really is a pretty cool place to work at and be involved in.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank
Okay.
you. And any other advice that you can give to listeners or who want to start natural family planning and don't know how to start it, or with your experience with clients or yourself, anything, positive or words of encouragement for them to go ahead and do this?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think working with a trained practitioner for whatever model you choose is a really important thing to do, because it helps you build confidence really quickly so that you can be successful in your goals. But also, I think that this is a really empowering way to really take control of your health, and to really invite God into your marriage in a new way. That maybe you weren't before. If you were contracepting before and now you want to change that path, or if you just don't know how to chart your cycles and you just want to like invite God into that conversation a little bit more. I think that these are really important ways that we can empower women to take charge and to be informed so that they know what resources are there.
Another way you said, invite God. I love that. Because it's true, like when you're charting, you're inviting God, like saying, well, God, what is happening? What are you doing? I'm praying about it as well. Like, this is happening to me. God, please help me in this situation. For example, right now, I'm in my late 40s, so more in the menopause. And even though I want to have more children and it hasn't happened before, I was like, well, God, this is what you want. And really knowing that this is God's way for me. And saying, well, God, okay, this is what's happening in my body, and to understand more. And so I can have that life that you're asking me. So I love that we say inviting God instead of trying to do it yourself. So I love that. Thank you so much. That's very good.
And just one more thing that comes to mind. You mentioned different models, and you the Creighton. Or how a woman, a young lady will know what model to choose and then approach to the right person?
That's a really great question. There's a book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility, and I think the author is Toni Weschler, and she kind of talks about some of the different ways that you can understand the body, and I think anybody that you talk to, like if you come and talk to me and you tell me what your goals are, and I think really another model might work for you, I just let you know that. Or if I think that the Creighton model would be a great model for you. I think the first step would be kind of reading about each one. The diocesan website, the Fort Worth diocesan page does have a little description about each kind. And then getting in touch with a practitioner, asking them some questions, letting them know where you are in your reproductive life, and how does that really apply or not apply to you.
Okay. And you said references. So also I'll be typing after this talk, typing some references that Stephanie sent me. So you can also look at those references, books and things like that. So you can always go and search, and also for yourself, study it and then find out more if you like as well, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely.
That they can look at and books or
And I guess on the website, you may have some resources, right?
Right, and your website and the.
Yeah, there are some good NAPRO technology resources and Creighton model resources on the website. But yeah, I do have some ones that are my favorites that I send to clients that I think they would enjoy the most. And I included those in a little list for you guys. So if anybody wants to check it out.
Perfect. I forgot to, well, she was talking to say something, I forgot. Well, if I remember, I'll let you guys know. But I don't know any other questions or anything else you have to do around the natural family planning. And well, just knowing that this week is the 15th anniversary of Human Habitat, I think is wonderful we're having this. And also whoever's listening, and if you already do natural family planning, don't be embarrassed to talk about it, to give it to others, because women can really benefit from this, you know, knowing their bodies. And as a young girl, even if you have a daughter, you were wondering, you know, how to help her, there's a way for her to know instead of falling in the world out there. So I think it's very important. And even husbands or fathers, you know, they can even have fathers that maybe the wife died or they don't have someone. There's a way that their fathers can help the daughters as well, right? And the husbands, you know, like right now my husband is listening, and he knowing, as he knows me, my body, I think with her 3 daughters, he will know what's going to happen, and he can help more the daughters. So, I don't know what's happening to these girls. I think it will be more of that union with their daughters, and the daughters finding that their dad understands them and is with them, instead of saying, my dad doesn't understand me, he doesn't get me. And when the daughter feels understood by the dad, she will always go to him for advice or for anything, even troubles outside of this theme. I really believe that, you know, feeling that that the dad is there. So that's very important, that bond between daughter and father. I think that's a good point as well. That we can talk about that. That is something positive, even though it might be hard. And I think that's all. I don't know if any other questions, sweetie, no. as a man that you might have, even though he's aboard with this, thank God.
No, actually, the only thing will be, I mean, what will be the best approach? I mean, as a husband, if somebody is listening to us and say, well, you know, it would be good to, I mean, obviously you talk with your wife and invite her to start this, or maybe to bring our daughter to start with this. What will be the approach? I mean, is it okay just for me to start, or would you have any other suggestions?
You know, I think that starting with just understanding what the models are, I think is a really good way to start. Jason Everett does a really great talk called Green Sex, and that one's on my list too. It's an audio talk that you can get from online, like you can buy the little MP3 file, and it's about an hour and a half. And I really like this one because it's from a man's perspective. It's from the husband's perspective. How does what are the bad side effects of birth control? Like, why are they not a good choice? And then how does scripture really call us to this kind of lifestyle? And then how do we implement that? And how does a husband implement that and appreciate that in a marriage? I think he's got some really great points in his talk. I would not be able to cover them all as eloquently.
Okay, I'll send the link as well so that you know listen. We can hear as well and help out in that area. So I think, and if anyone has any questions, I'll see, but I don't think there's any questions here. And if you listen to this later on and you have questions, you can always type in and we'll be able to answer them. And if I don't have the answer, we'll definitely go to Stephanie and ask Stephanie for the answers if she has them, so we can help you out in any way. But yeah, don't let financial situation or your doubts or fears or anything stop you for reaching out help to be healthier as a woman, and even in your marriage, I think, right? It's like that should not stop you, or like you say, infertility, or if you want babies or you don't want babies, or you think it's the right moment. I think it's a beautiful way that natural family planning has, like you said, evolved and known more and more, now like in the past, that the more we know, like medicine, the more medicine is known, the more they can do. Well, the same here. The more we know about our bodies, the more we can help. And like you, the more like people like you, Stephanie, that study this, it's wonderful. And one thing that I can also assure you, that when I started natural family planning and I did not have a doctor who knew about it, it was really hard to talk to the doctor, because it was like, yeah, it was just hard. And when I found a doctor like Dr. Behan in Dallas, I didn't know anything about Fort Worth yet. It was, gosh, I'm talking about maybe 10 years ago. He was there and I took my chart, and I feel so happy that a doctor can know what the chart meant. You know, he can say, oh, well, this, and this. And then, oh, you know what? And even my chart was finished. She's like, oh, here, I'll give you more things and I'll give you more stamps. And next time we'll do this. So I felt so happy. I was like, okay, thank God somebody's understanding what's happening instead of just not there. So that's something that you said is really important, to find a doctor that can understand you so you can go forward instead of fighting in against it. That's my personal.
Yeah, it's incredibly validating to find that. If you find that you're struggling and you're having problems and, you know, you're telling your doctor you're having this bleeding and they say, okay, like, okay, you know, take this pill, take that prescription, and you don't feel like your questions are answered. You know, all of my clients say after they get the help that they really needed and deserved, they all say like, I feel so validated. I feel so listened to. I feel so empowered. These are things that I've been talking and telling people, telling physicians for years. And now I feel like I can actually like participate and say like, hey, no, here's the proof. Here's the proof on my charting. And here is where I want improvements. So it definitely is a really cool experience.
So thank you. Thanks a lot. Yes. And thank you, Stephanie, for being here. I thank you for working with all these clients or these women and men and our whole life as well. Thank you so much. I hopefully can.
Thank you for having me.
And just one thing, if you're in an area that you can't find a doctor, I was thinking as well, thinking that maybe there are some people who are listening outside of Dallas that can't find an area, or in Fort Worth, a doctor is still reach out, like you said, because thank God right now with the Zoom, and you can always reach out, like you, Stephanie, where you work, you can always reach out and have that help there. And even if your doctor doesn't understand all that, they can help you out. So don't feel fear because you don't have a doctor in your area that can help you with it. There's always a way through internet to help you out.
Absolutely. In Fort Worth, the Whole Life Authentic Care Clinic just opened last November. So it hasn't been here very long. And up to that point, all of my NAPRO care was long distance. And there is telemedicine for this, and it works very well. And so finding those doctors has become a lot less challenging because we can do things like telemed these days that I think are definitely needed for people who don't live in those areas that have.
That's a lot of hope.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, because that's hopeful. Yeah, because in my times that was not the case. So that's very hopeful. Yes, exactly. But even for now, like, you know, so to know that, like I said, even though we already finished, I thank God with this, and menopause also helps a lot with this information and for our daughters and anyone that we know. So thank you so much, Stephanie, and God bless and keep your good work for you. Okay. Thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in A.R.T Domine. And any questions, please let us know. And hopefully you enjoy this and you got a lot of information so we can really do God's will out there and help many people. God bless. Take care.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Bye. Thank you.